Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
There is a principle, which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all argument, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Good morning. My name is Hugh Douglas. I'm an alcoholic. I would like to say a few things before I start talking this morning. And one of the things I certainly would like to say is that I would like to tell you how much I appreciate your hospitality. You Texans know how to get it on. And I'm very glad of that, because I also like to get it on. But you know, the funny part of it is that if I did not know I was in Texas, I wouldn't know I was in Texas. The amazing thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is no matter where you go, Alcoholics Anonymous is Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And there is only one reason Alcoholics Anonymous is Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is because of this book right here, for no other reason. Otherwise, it would be a hodgepodge of drunks trying to find some way to get away from an Al-Anon. But the way it is concentric. And no matter where you go, you'll feel at home. It's been a long time since I've not felt at home, or since I have felt like a visitor in any meeting I've attended anywhere in this country or Canada. And thank God for that. I would also like to welcome a lot of you new people here. I've talked to several of you, and I know you're new, no matter how long it's been since you quit drinking. And tell you, if no one has, that you're now a part of a fellowship that has astounded science for a great many years. This is the largest group of people anywhere in the world who have found a way to go from adolescence to senility without ever bothering to pass through maturity. So welcome. And if some of you are having a slight problem quitting drinking, I would like to remind you that quitting drinking is like making love to a gorilla, and you are not through until the gorilla is through. But I am sure that if you will find yourself a sponsor who can interpret this book for you, and if you will buy this book and follow a few simple suggestions, that you too can stay sober. And staying sober is probably the easiest thing you'll ever do. Oddly enough, for any alcoholic, that is not difficult. It is changing your way of living that is difficult. And if you believe that anyone stays sober for years, you are wrong. They do not. We stay sober for one day, and those days become weeks, and the weeks become months, and they become years. But all Alcoholics Anonymous is ever going to offer you is one way to stay away from one drink for one day, no more. And if you will do that, you will find that your life will change radically. Now, some of you may be slightly confused, especially if you received a flyer and not a program. And I think I can straighten that confusion out with a little story I once heard. And this little story involved a man who, well, he met another fellow, and he was going to take him somewhere, and he said, on the way, I'd like to stop and pick up my wife. She's working. So the man says, that's fine with me. He said, I'm in no great hurry. So they drove down the street for a while, and they stopped in front of a house and sat there for a minute. And the guy said, why'd you stop here? He said, I want to pick up my wife. She'll be getting off in a few minutes. He said, man, that's a house of prostitution. Does your wife, is she a prostitute? He said, no, she's not. He said, she's a substitute. Now, Father Hillary was supposed to be here this morning, and obviously I am not Father Hillary. So what you might call me is a Protestant substitute. And I am glad to be here. Now, it has been a long time since I have talked much about what the drinking was like. And I've got three pretty good reasons for doing this. One of the reasons is I never did develop a fascination for the LAPD version of the way I drank. I never got overly fond of my first wife's version of the way I drank. And I don't remember how I drank. And if you drank like me, the chances are you probably wouldn't remember too much of it either. Now, I've heard a lot of people, and you have, and we heard it last night, a lot of people who can get up here and give you almost a moment-by-moment, blow description of how they drank. I can't do that. And if anyone had asked me a few years ago when I quit working, or when I started working, rather, I would have told them that it was in August 1960, 3 months after I come into Alcoholics Anonymous. I retired here recently, and I got my work record, and I found out that I'd retired, or started to work in August 1959. So there's 1 year that I have little, if any, memory about in any way, and yet, seemingly to other people, I was somewhat normal, although rather eccentric. But I had worked for a year without ever knowing that I had worked. But it does explain some things that were rather vague, and I've had a lot of people ask me if I'm going to take an inventory and find out what happened. No, I am not going to take an inventory and find out what happened. Have you ever noticed people who are taking inventories? They're always miserable. And I have learned the secret of true happiness is good health and a bad memory. And I do not intend to take an inventory of anything. Whatever happened, happened, and seeing as how my pictures is no longer on the walls of various post offices, I'm not really concerned about what happened. What happened, happened, and I'd prefer to live it there and look to tomorrow instead of looking always at yesterday, always backwards. But I come into Alcoholics Anonymous in the summer of 1960. And the 28th of June is the first day I remember, so I'll assume that's when I got here. And that would mean that I have been a faithful member of Alcoholics Anonymous to some extent for almost 29 years. And if I take one drink, that has absolutely no meaning of any kind. And a great many people that I have met have depended on their seniority and have forgotten about their sobriety. And without knowing it, they did not do a 180-degree turn, but a 360-degree turn, and ended up right back where they came from with many years of sobriety, because of one simple fact that most of us never quite consider. Sobriety is not immunity. We are not immune from life and the troubles of life and the foibles of life. They are still there. And most of the things that happen to us today are the same things that happened to us years ago. The only difference is today that we found a way to stay away from that first drink of alcohol, thereby never setting this horrible cycle of craving and motion. And alcoholism is a craving for alcohol. Very simple. There's nothing complicated about it. So what I do try to talk about is what I have learned from this book and this way of life in the last almost 29 years. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. Recovery. Now, this is the first edition of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This edition was published in 1939. And the amazing thing about this book is that in the last 54 years almost, the basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous has not been changed appreciably in any way. And if you buy the third edition of this book, or the second edition, or the first edition, you'll be reading fundamentally the same thing, and only words or two here and there have been changed to update the book, but the changes are so incidental that they really have no meaning. And the fly for this book has one thing on it that the new book has, but it's said differently. It says this is the story of how 100 men have recovered from alcoholism. You'll find out the new book say that how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And you'll notice I used the word recovered. I didn't use the word recovering. And I get confused and concerned about a lot of the words I hear in Alcoholics Anonymous or at various meetings that are not out of this book right here. And there are many of them that are used constantly today that tend to confuse a drunk like me. And the odd part of it is that this book here, although it was published in 1939, is simpler to read than the newer version, oddly enough. And there's a funny thing about this book. In most of the new versions, in fact, in all of them that I have read, they use the expression ex-problem drinkers. In this book, they say ex-alcoholics. So I'm a little confused even about AA. Am I an alcoholic or not? According to this book, I'm an ex-alcoholic. But to keep it simple, I'm just going to call myself an alcoholic, although the odd part of it is that Bill never called himself an alcoholic. He said he was a drunk. And he always introduced himself that way. I'm Bill, I'm a drunk. And sometimes I think it would make it simpler if we'd done the same thing and understand exactly what we're in Alcoholics Anonymous for, instead of all the confusion that goes along with all of the new words that you continue to hear. I am not recovering. I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, as the people in this book said they had done, because I followed a few simple directions for a little while. But you'll hear a lot of these words. Did you ever hear a word? Oh, you heard one yesterday. Codependent. I'm a codependent. We can do what I cannot do. It's codependency. You hear about dysfunctional families. Now, that's a nice word. A lot of people think that's a brand new word. Most of those people never read the Bible. Because if you read the Bible, you read the story of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis, and they were a dysfunctional family. They wouldn't mind. They did what they wasn't supposed to do, got their butts thrown out of the Garden of Eden, and one of the kids killed the other one. That is a dysfunctional family. So these things are not new. It's just that man occasionally sees glimpses of yesterday and thinks he's found something new. He has. But there's one word that I hear quite often and I do like. Co-alcoholic. I like that word. Do you realize if that is true that my first wife owes me almost 87 days of jail time? Of course, I've never been able to convince her of this, but it sounds like a hell of an idea to me, but it seems like that these are kind of slanted words. This has no slanted word. Very simple, direct to the point, tells you exactly what you should do, how to do it, and what you can expect from having done these things. So I'm going to talk about that. Did you ever read the doctor's opinion in this book? It is probably one of the most graphic explanations of alcoholism I have ever read anywhere. And I've read many books, articles, and treatises about alcoholism written by some very learned people who obviously don't have the slightest idea what they're talking about. You know what Silkworth said about it? He said men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. And while its effect is injurious, it is so elusive that we soon cannot differentiate between the true and the false. And we become convinced that our alcoholic life is the only normal one. And if you're convinced that your life is the only normal life, I don't care whether you are drunk or sober, you'll find out one remarkable thing happens. No matter what goes wrong, it's never your fault. It's her fault, his fault, or their fault. But it's never your fault. After all, you're living the way life should normally be lived, and they are out of step. And then he said we're restless, irritable, and discontented unless we can again experience that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once from taking a few drinks. Drinks which we see others taking with impunity. But once we succumb to the desire again, as so many do, the phenomena of craving develops. And we will pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, vowing never to drink again. And this will happen over and over and over. And unless we can experience some kind of a complete psychic change, there is very little hope for our recovery. Alcoholism. The craving for alcohol, which occurs after you take the first drink, not before, where addiction comes before the action, alcoholism comes after the action, thereby setting it somewhat unique in the annals of medical science. Different somehow than addiction. And yet, that word is also used in a doctor's opinion. But he says something else that I think is extremely important for every alcoholic to understand, because in the doctor's opinion are 5 different types of alcoholics that are graphically described in the doctor's opinion. 5 types that were known well in 1939 when this book was published. And he talks about the psychotic, the neurotic, the manic depressive, the so-called normal drinker. 5 different types. And he says something else a little later that's extremely important, because he said these types and many others have but one symptom in common. When they start to drink, the phenomena of craving develops, and that is alcoholism, not neurosis, not psychosis, not all of this other thing that so many people waste so much time trying to treat and end up failing miserably. You are nutty as a fruitcake. Why don't you learn to enjoy it and stop trying to correct it? The simple truth is that if you don't drink, no one but you will ever know for sure how crazy you really are, and you can have a ball confusing the hell out of it. Instead of going nuts trying to correct it. We got a guy out there on the coast that you people have heard of, and I do not mention his name unless I am forced to. He recently got 30 years of sobriety. They give him a cake with 30 candles on it, and every one of them represented physical sobriety. Not one of them represented emotional stability. So we give out candles on cakes in AA for physical sobriety. We do not pass them out for emotional stability. Thank God for that, or Beverly would never have received 23 of them. She's very insulting, and I got to ride home with her, so I'm not going to try to get fully even, but my God. Understand, alcoholism is a unique thing that cuts across the social orders that we live in almost perfectly, taking 1/10 of all the people who drink alcohol and converting them in some unique way to alcoholic, for some reason not understood. So it makes no difference now whether you're psychotic, neurotic, foolish, sensible. If you take a drink, the phenomenon of craving develops and you'll want one more drink, and that is alcoholism. When I take one drink, I want another one. It's just that simple. And left unchecked, this want will become a need so great that in a while I will not be able to quit regardless of what is done, AA or no AA, medical treatment or no medical treatment. And I will pass through the gates of insanity or death as my father did in 1933 in a little insane asylum in southern Missouri, 2 years before Alcoholics Anonymous was formed. He died of acute and chronic alcoholism. Unfortunately, even with this way of life, far too many people today are still dying of this dreaded thing. And yet, not one death certificate says alcoholism. Pancreatitis, car wrecks, as a friend of mine did here in Mississippi a couple of months ago who would not quit. He was burned to death in a car wreck. So alcohol claimed his life, and yet that would not be on his death certificate. Is it medically treatable or not? I don't know. Is it a disease or not? I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing that I have discovered. Because of my curiosity and plain nosiness, I like to understand things I hear. And do you realize that alcoholism is the only ailment known to mankind that is called the disease of the only one? Why is this? You don't call cancer the disease of cancer. You don't call any other medically treatable ailment the disease of anything, and yet I hear it over and over and over by people who have many years of sobriety, as long with people who have only a few days. Are we becoming publicity agents for the American Psychiatric Association, forgetting exactly what we're here for? Maybe it is a disease, maybe it is not. If you went to the dance last night, you'd probably think it was something else. It looked more like an affliction. And I don't care where you go to these AA dances, they all look the same. They look like they're afflicted with something. Please, for God's sakes, let's be careful what words we use in describing this dread ailment. Let's try to understand what we're talking about. Let's understand that most alcoholics have only one method of recovery, and if you have a problem with that method, I think there is a way that any one of you can learn exactly what AA is all about and be comprehensible in your understanding of steps 1, 2, 3, and you can do it for less than $10. Or you can spend $20,000. It depends on how much dough you got in the bank. All you really got to do is spend a few bucks buying yourself a big book, take the rest of the money and buy the biggest box of X-Lax you can find and eat every one of them. And you will no longer have a problem in understanding that your life is unmanageable. You will no longer have difficulty understanding what powerlessness is. You will no doubt come to believe in a power greater than yourself. And you will be willing to turn your will and your life over to anything that'll get you off the can. And you'll be convinced that you were nutty as a fruitcake to do it the first time. So it don't take a lot of money. All it takes is just a little common sense. And common sense is something most alcoholics don't have too much of. We're too busy trying to claim we're crazy. Now, I'm going to tell you a story I think is going to straighten this one out for you. It seems like there was a guy once who was driving past a nut house, and he had a flat. He got out, jacked the car up, took the lugs off the wheel, took the wheel off, put the lugs in the hubcap and set it on the curb or beside the curb, changed tires, put the tire back on, reached for the hubcap, dropped it, all the nuts went right down the sewer. The guy's standing there looking, and he's figuring, how in the name of heaven am I possibly going to get this tire on? With no lug nuts, how can I do it? And there's a nut standing there watching him. And he said, hey, mister, I said, what do you want? He said, why don't you just take one nut off the other 3 wheels and put it on there to hold your wheel on? The guy said, that's remarkable. He said, are you a patient here? The guy said, yeah. He said, how come a crazy man could figure that one out? Well, he said, mister, I'm crazy, not stupid. So we get so busy sometimes trying to treat insanity, we forget about stupidity and fail miserably. We just don't use much common sense in most things, do we? Now, I know that some of you fellas, one of these days, if you are not already married or going to get married, I'm going to give you a tip right now. no matter how much wisdom you have, for God's sakes, have the common sense not to try to help her with her program. Because I have never yet known of an alcoholic who ever got married. We get adopted. And whoever adopts us is not really approving of what has happened to us before they adopted us. Do you realize that I married Beverly about 18 years ago and I didn't know how to get my hair cut? And she told me one day, she said, "You don't cut your hair right." I said, "I don't cut my hair at all." She said, "Well, whoever does it doesn't do it right." Now, there's one thing that no man should ever ask his wife or his sponsor. It's a very simple question. Never use it. The question is, what do you mean by that? She said, "Barbara, don't cut your hair right." I said, I've been getting my hair cut for the last 50 goddamn years, and now you're telling me you don't know how to cut my hair. She said, "Yes, I am." I said, "What are you telling me for? Go tell him." She said, "I'm going to." So she took me by my little hand, walked me over to the barber shop, had me sit in a chair, told the barber exactly how to cut my hair, and there's 3 guys sitting there talking to one another. People says, "Doesn't that embarrass you?" And I said, "No. It doesn't embarrass me anywhere near as much as she would if I didn't do it." And this points up something I think every alcoholic should understand. You are not always given the choice of right and wrong, good or bad. Sometimes you have to make a choice of the greater of 2 goods or the lesser of 2 evils. And this requires a certain amount of common sense and a little bit of sobriety. And if what's her name tells you to do it, for God's sakes do it, but don't ask her what she means by it, because she will tell you. And that's even going to be more confusing than if she doesn't tell you. So just remember, you're going to get adopted by somebody. Hope to God it's another alcoholic and not an Al-Anon. But if it's, what is to be will be, I guess. It's a way of paying our retribution for the things that we have done to others. Then you get off the hook. I'm going to skip over Bill's story, but when you start to read the basic text of this book, and you read chapters 1 and 2, oddly enough, you'll be reading only about step 1, because that's exactly what this book is written about, is the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think I can show that to you in a very few minutes. So when you read chapters 2 and 3, you'll be reading only about step 1. But did you ever read that step? Really read it? It says, "We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable," and there is no "and" in there. I want to point that out to you to start with. Your life was unmanageable because you were too drunk to take care of yourself. Not for any other reason. You can have an unmanageable life, never had a drink for 30 years. Not hard to do. Get a wife and a girlfriend if you don't believe me, and watch what happens. Your life will become unmanageable. You don't have to drink yourself to death, just do something foolish. There's one word in there I did not like. When I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I had made and spent $963,000. And I've been given one of the biggest medals I hang around a soldier's neck in this country, and there's no way he was going to tell me I was powerless over anything or anyone. People were a commodity. I bought and sold them like anything else. The fact that I was sleeping in a cardboard box at the time was incidental, really had nothing to do with it. Just incidental. Now, before I go on with the basic text of this, there is one word that is not in this book that I firmly believe should be in this book, because I believe that one word describes alcoholics better than anything else, even after they have recovered over many years. That word is backwards. It's not that an alcoholic does anything more right or wrong than anyone else does. It's just that every damn thing we do, we do it backwards. I had a friend of mine once who bought 4 brand new tires, got them on sale, got a hell of a price. He didn't own a car. So we do things backwards. And understanding that, you'll understand that this book is also written backwards. I was in the Marine Corps for a while, and believe me, surrender to win is not a Marine Corps motto. And I was in business for several years out in California. And keep it by giving it away is not a business axiom. You put it in your pocket, put your hand in your pocket, and you get the hell out of town, but you don't give nobody nothing. And this program and this way of life and this book is written backwards to any other discipline, any other study you'll study anywhere, because alcoholics are just backwards. The things we do are backwards. And I think I can tell you a little story that'll show that to you better than anything else, too. It seems like because it rains on the just and the unjust equally as well, according to the Bible, you're going to get rained on. If the best and worst and oldest and youngest member walk out of this door this morning and it was raining outside, all would get wet. There is no immunity. The only difference is that if you were a normal person, you would do things somewhat different than the average drunk does them, even though he's been sober for a while. And if you lived in a very small town and there was a one-girl cat house, and I don't want you girls to listen to this, but you fellows pay attention. And this girl had one of these other social disorders that are very common. And both went there, both would acquire whatever syndrome she had. The only difference is that the normal guy would not go back until they had changed girls. But the alcoholic goes back as soon as he can, because he's really convinced this time it's going to be different. And besides that, he fell in love on the first visit. So you will see that we have a slight approach that is backwards. AA is backwards, and when you understand that this book is backwards and the writing in it is backwards, you can understand why this is called Alcoholics Anonymous, not anything else. And quite often you'll see people who are overeaters, for instance, and I've seen this, who take the word alcohol out, write overeater in, read the book, practice the principles, and gain weight. Because this book was written by a drunk. And anyone who follows a drunk is not too stable. And if you do exactly what a drunk tells you to do and you want to lose weight, you'll gain it because they're backward. And most other programs have failed using this 12-step concept because they have not written a book based on their experiences. They have tried to take the experiences of a drunk, turn this into some kind of glamour, and fail miserably. But the drunk don't do it because it's backwards, he's backwards, now it works. And understand that. And it'll work for you. And it'll be simple. Then you won't be confused when you do things backwards. Because you are backwards, I'm backwards. So what? I'm not trying to change it. And when an alcoholic gets well, the odd part of it is he no longer wants to drink. The medical profession says when you get well, you could drink successfully. So our ways are different. They're backwards to any other way. And the medical profession has problems with us because they're trying to teach a left-handed person how to write right-handed, and it does not work. Just leave us alone. We'll take care of ourselves. And you'll find that also in one of the appendages in this book where a psychiatrist says, don't mess with them. They're nuts. Just leave them alone. They know how to take care of themselves, and we do, seemingly, don't we? Chapter 4, We Agnostics. Did you ever read that chapter? Fascinating chapter. Fascinating. And it's right there where most alcoholics begin to make the mistakes AA that causes them trouble over many years. Right there in step 2, because that's all chapter 4 is written about, is step 2. No more and no less. And the first paragraph, I think, is extremely important, where it says, in the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. You know what the difference is? You can read it in chapter 2, where it says, the heavy drinker, given sufficient reason, can quit. Problems of job, money, home, health, family, wife, these are all sufficient reasons for him to quit. Were they for us? No, of course not. Suppose your wife says, if you don't quit drinking, I'm leaving. You say, don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out. No, that's not sufficient reason for us, but it is for a heavy drinker. And therefore, many people seem to moderate or quit entirely because they choose to quit entirely, as my first wife did, who drank more than I drank, but decided one day she did not like that way of drinking. She didn't stop completely. She drank. She got drunk occasionally on a birthday or anniversary or New Year. But it was never a problem to her because she could quit when she chose to quit. She had not lost that power. We have lost that power. And that's what sets us apart as far as drinking is concerned. Because when I take the first drink, I can no longer determine how much or how long I will drink. It will run its full course. And if I die in the meantime, so be it. And it happens many times to many people. Because of this damnable phenomena of craving, which the medical people have never fully cognized of, who have never fully accepted, for some reason yet unknown. But by calling alcoholism a disease, they accomplished a miracle. A miracle. They were able to bill the insurance companies for treatment that is totally ineffective. A miracle of the medical profession. And I have great faith in doctors. It is not that at all. It is the administration of these various plans where alcoholics are concerned that bothers me. They have deprived us of our greatest asset, the wet drunk. Sometimes it takes us as long as 4 years to convince an alcoholic that AA is better after he has damn near drank himself to death after many expensive treatments. Nothing complicated about this thing so far, I hope. Keep it simple, it'll work. Keep it simple. For God's sakes, Billy, keep it simple. You realize how many times Bob said that to Bill? Just keep it simple, Billy. Keep it simple. Let's keep it simple, too. Huh? Simple enough to where it's understandable. Because you see, because of the backward aspects of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have seen many people too smart to make this program, but oddly enough, I have never seen anyone too dumb to make it. Your intelligence is probably the greatest character defect you will ever have. And unlearning what you already know will take longer than learning what you can find, even though the basic text in this book is 179 pages long, because page 1 is the doctor's opinion. I don't know why that was changed. If you want my approval, I'm not going to give it, but you didn't ask, so I'm not going to tell you. The next part of that first paragraph in chapter 2 is extremely important because it lists the only 2 symptoms for alcoholism that are listed anywhere in this book, and there are only 2. It's as if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely. Or if when you're drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. If this be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Now, would you tell me why so many people waste so much of their time on this planet trying to become emotionally stable and have so little to do with a spiritual concept? Still think we can do it ourselves, I guess. Most of us do for a while. Now, there's one point I'd like to make before I go any further into this agnostics. I was neither an atheist nor an agnostic when I got into Alcoholics Anonymous. I was born and raised in southern Missouri in the Baptist Bible Belt, and there is no way they will permit you to be an atheist in that part of the country in my time. So I believed in God and Jesus Christ then, and I want to make it absolutely clear that I still do. That has not changed one damn bit. And I've had a lot of people tell me that if you mention God or Christ from podiums like this to people like those, you're going to drive some of them drunks out of here. I wouldn't doubt it. But booze will drive you back, so in the end we're going to break even. Now, if you don't want to hear about God, the power greater than yourself, or a higher power, then don't bother to read this book because you'll find it's mentioned some 228 different times. In the later editions, if you don't want to hear about Christ or the devil, then don't read page 11 because both are mentioned on that one page. It might be necessary for you to try to find another way to stay sober, and after you fail miserably, if you survive, you come on back and we'll talk about this spiritual concept. Not religious, but spiritual. That Alcoholics Anonymous has become so world famous for in the last 54 years. Spiritual, not religious. Now on page 52 in this one chapter, you'll find 8 results of being either an atheist, an agnostic, or an egoist. 8 results. Now I said egoist, I didn't say egotist, even though some people say in my case that too would have applied. You know what an egoist is? An egoist is a person that while he knows all about God, he believes only in himself. And if you believe only in yourself, you will think only of yourself. And it won't be long before you'll live your life as if you was in a room full of mirrors, and every human emotion that goes out bounces right back. And if you feel any kind of pity, it will always be self-pity, always. And you'll find out that you have only a very small amount of pity. God gave us only a little. And he meant for us to use it for others, not on ourselves. Self-pity. I feel sorry for me. Now I'm going to get frustrated as hell trying to make the rest of you callous, indifferent jerks feel as sorry for me as I feel for me, because it ain't enough. Self-pity feeds the human ego, and there is not enough of anything to satisfy the human ego. There is not enough women in all the world and all the universe to satisfy the ego of a woman chasing man. It cannot be done. Unfortunately, there's not enough clothes in the world to satisfy a clothes-loving woman either. I'm planning on putting strings in my bedroom and sleeping in a closet to have room enough for what's-her-name's clothing. And we get involved in that argument, and that's going to be good for a 1,000-mile trip. And I'm prepared to forget what I just said. I said there were 8 results. Now I'm not going to tell you what they are. I had to buy this book and read them. If you want to find out what they are, you can buy your own book and read them, because I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'll tell you what 2 of them are. One of them says we could not control our emotional natures. One of them says we were having trouble in our personal relationships. You know where else relationships is graphically mentioned in this book? In chapter 11, where it says, see to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Now tell me, fellas, is it possible most of the relationships we got involved in our life went to hell so quickly because we went into it with, what's in it for me? What could I get out of it? And we never even existed. We never had a chance. I think it's something every one of us should look at from time to time. And I want to point out something else and caution you, because over these years I have seen so many people come into Alcoholics Anonymous wanting self-respect, self-worth, self-esteem. This book refers to self-hyphenated words 93 different times, and not one time does it approve of any of them, not one time. Driven by countless forms of self-delusion. Would you like that too? What about self-righteousness? You want a pocket full of that to go along with it? Let me tell you what will happen. You want this self-esteem and you'll get it. You want this self-worth and you will achieve it. And the self-esteem will turn to conceit, and the self-worth will turn to arrogance, and you'll be right back where you started. You know what this says about that? In chapter 11, one more time, it says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. It does not say one word about self-improvement, but abandon yourself to God as you understand God. And you'll find out that then God will do for you what you could never have done for yourself. And the only worth worth having is what am I worth to you? The only esteem that has any value is what esteem do you hold me in? I know what esteem I hold myself in, for heaven's sake. But what am I worth to you? Do you realize that is the only value of any drunk in Alcoholics Anonymous, is what he is worth to his fellow man? Nothing else. The next chapter in this book is entitled How It Works. Have you ever asked an old-timer how it works and he says, trust God and clean house? You want to know where he got it? Out of chapter 7, Working with Others, where it says, burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he too can get well, regardless of anyone. The only condition being that he trust in God and clean house. Now, before I get into the significance of that in this chapter 5, there's something else I'd like to mention for a moment or two. And that's this small portion of chapter 5 that's being read all over the country. Every place I go anymore, they're reading it. You didn't hear, but I'm sure you do in your home groups and in your meeting. Do you pay attention to what's being read? You've heard it mentioned twice by two different speakers. It's that important. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. There is no S on path. There is only one path. There is no way you can work this program any way you want to, and if you want to fail, try it. But you will walk it at your own pace. But one path, only one, not two, not three, one path. There are two kinds of people who ain't going to make it. Those who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Now they're talking about the smart ass and the wet brain. Next time one of you have a little drinky poo, or some of you idiots fire off that some of you carry around with you, and you're sitting out here on one of these street corners trying to figure out which one you are, I want to tell you right now, wet brain can't think. You'll know which one you are, I just told you. Did you ever hear somebody say, if you want what we have, that's a philosophy of a thief. It is not in this book, and it is not a part of the AA way of life. You know what the book says? If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps, so don't get in too big a hurry. Make that decision. Make sure you want it. And be convinced that you're willing to go to any length to get it, otherwise you ain't going to get it. What you will get is a whole bunch of little technicolored buttons they give out to hang on your keychain. You might even get a cake or two with a candle on it, but you know what you will not get? Peace of mind, contentment, hope, serenity, any of the things that makes life worth living. Oh, you'll know they're there, but they'll always be just beyond your grasp. And you will pursue them to the gates of insanity one more time and go nutty as a fruitcake because you will not do what they suggested that you do. At some of these we balked. Yeah. Christ had 12 disciples. Alcoholics Anonymous has 12 steps. One of Christ's disciples was Judas. One of these steps is Judas. Doesn't make any difference what the number is. You know what step it is? It's the one step you're absolutely convinced you don't have to take. That's the Judas step. That's the one that'll throw you right back where you came from. Doesn't make any difference what the number is. That's the Judas step in Alcoholics Anonymous. But there's one word in this chapter that an alcoholic, he just goes into spasms of ecstasy when he hears it. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Oh, when he hears that word suggested, he breathes a deep sigh of utter release. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. I've seen drunks go into spasms almost equaling an orgasm on that one. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. I had a friend of mine up in the Mojave airfield up close to where I live who used to teach skydiving. And on the rings of those parachutes, he had a little acrylic tag made up, and it said, "This ring is meant to be suggestive only." He said he never had anyone ever fail to follow that suggestion. At least come back and complain about it. Now, why is it that a skydiver's life is more important to him than an alcoholic's life is to him? Why is this? A puzzle I've never been able to figure out yet. Did we place such little value on human life? Are we so foolish? I sometimes wonder. And probably the most misleading statement in all of Alcoholics Anonymous is also in this part we read. There are those too who are gravely emotionally and mentally ill, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Do you realize how many people have been led down a primrose path believing that honesty is an effective treatment for emotional dysfunction, psychic disorders, mental disorders, and have not sought proper medical help when they did need it and could use it, and have went totally stark raving mad after a few years in Alcoholics Anonymous? Do you have any conceivable idea how many people have done that? It's not what it's talking about at all. Most of us do not fully comprehend the word honesty as we do not fully comprehend the meaning of the word insanity in this book. It has nothing to do with clinical meanings at all. It's the only words that were available to Bill at the time. And they have a meaning. All you have to do is understand it. So you have to have somebody sometimes translate it for you. I got myself what you people today laughingly call a sponsor many years ago. Back then we called them adversaries. And I heard this word honesty, and I could not understand it, and I made the fatal mistake of going to him one day and asking him if he'd mind explaining the word honesty to me and how it applied to AA. I'll tell you about something about this fellow. He died about 5 years ago, and to the best of my knowledge, he never, ever in his entire life, ever answered a question directly for anyone. What he would do is he'd ask you a question, and when you knew the answer to his, you also knew the answer to yours. And he never got any work done that way at all. But he was teaching me at the time how to think sober. And what he said was something very simple. He said, let's assume that there's a man and a woman who are both married to someone else, and they get together one day and they decide to go to a motel. And they go up to the desk clerk to register, and the clerk looks at them and he says, are you married? And they say, yes, we are. He gives them a key, they go inside. Now, he said, you tell me how honestly would apply to that. Well, I hadn't been in that position for a while, and it seemed like, not such a bad idea, but it also seemed rather obvious. And I said, well, yeah, if they was honest, they'd have said, yeah, we're married, but not to each other. He said, no, that's not it. He said, that would have been the truth, though, and it would have eliminated a sin of omission. But it has absolutely nothing to do with honesty. For 3 solid months, I puzzled that damn thing over. I knew where he was going to be on this one night, and I went there to talk to him about this word honesty. I was really planning on killing him if he didn't give me the answer to the damn thing. And I said, okay, what about this word honesty and a man and a woman in a motel bed? I said, how does it apply? He said, do you mean to tell me you haven't figured that out yet? I said, no, I ain't. He said, young man, you amaze me. He said, if they'd have been honest, they would not have been there. And that had never occurred to me. But something did begin to occur to me right after that. Something that I had overlooked for many years. Honesty deals with integrity. Honesty is action. Truth deals with facts. Both are important, but they are not synonymous. And how many times have every one of us been led down a primrose path because we believed somebody was honest when all they were truthful? Every one of us has been deceived by our own minds because of that one word that we do not fully understand the difference from another word. If somebody tells you they're a thief and you invite them home with you and they steal everything you got, don't go to an AA meeting complaining about them. They did not tell you they were honest. They told you they were a thief. Thieves steal. It's just that simple. But by understanding how this word honesty applies, and by understanding that action is the magic word in Alcoholics Anonymous, you now have the key to something that gives you a different way to go and a different way to look, and realizing that you must now be rigidly and rigorously honest in all of your affairs, and your integrity is now your most valuable asset. Integrity. I will do what I say I will do. If I cannot do it, I will not say it. And it's worked extremely well for me. When I met Beverly, I used to play a song for her over and over and over. Rose Garden. Because of one thing in there I really like. It says, if that's what it takes to hold you, I'd just as soon let you go. I promised her nothing. We have acquired a lot. Contentment, peace of mind, serenity, and all of these things in our own unique way, which other people call arguments. To us, it's a way of life. Because if we were different, neither of us would enjoy it. Did that ever occur to you? When God took a rib away from me to make a woman, he took a part of me out, and there is a missing part of me, and she is that missing part. Thank God, and I am also a missing part of her, and now we are one again. And she has qualities I do not have. I do not envy them. She has taught me the difference. I appreciate them, but I don't envy them. I'm glad she's got it. I'm equally glad I don't. I wouldn't want to have to put up with all of the ladies she has to put up with. I would kill most of them. And she really believes sometimes that her program is so effective that she's able to work miracles with these young ladies. Let me tell you the truth. In one way or another, in my own inimitable manner, I tell them all, if you fail with her, I get you. And like it said Bob did when the seriousness of this ailment was fully explained to him, he tried this spiritual remedy with a willingness he had never been able to muster. And I haven't had to fool with any of them. Thank God for that. When I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was confused. I come into North Hollywood group, and I was extremely confused because I come into the North Hollywood group and there's a bunch of men and women running around there screaming, men with the men and women with the women. And some big guy about this big walked over to me and grabbed him and put his arms around me and he kissed me on the forehead and he said, I love you. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're ever in Hollywood or North Hollywood and someone says something like that to you, you will think you have really done it to yourself this time. But today I understand what they mean. And today I can hug a man as I can hug a woman with the same identical meaning, because I learned somewhere along the line the true meaning of love. And it has nothing to do with lust, nothing to do with possession, nothing to do with emotional dysfunction. I love each and every one of you, and there is not one damn thing that any of you can do about it, even though your actions may thoroughly disgust me. You cannot stop me from loving you. So you will love me too. I get from life what I have given to life. I always have, and I always will. I determine that because I begin to understand from this action of integrity, it is not my words that are my prayer. It is my actions. Those are the things God determines. Look at what he's doing this time. Give him what he deserves. And I have always gotten what I have deserved, even though I have prayed seriously not to get it. The only trouble is I never got all of it. And I almost went nuts waiting for the other shoe to drop into the Lord, and his divine wisdom says, don't drop the other shoe, let the little jerk suffer. Oh, I have a loving God, but he's Baptist by nature, or a Marine, I'm not sure which. But a loving God nonetheless. But if I don't love me, would I expect God to? He does, though. But he gives me what I deserve. So I will alter my way of life. Not change it, but alter. Most people make a tragic mistake in Alcoholics Anonymous. They come in here, we're going to change everything. I'm going to change me with God's help. No, you're not. Did you ever walk into a bar and say, give me a double shot tonight, I'm going to be me? Of course not. We tried to change ourselves in every bar with every drink we ever took, and it was totally unsuccessful. Alcoholics Anonymous shows you how to be yourself. The one thing most of us never tried. It has shown me what I can be. and given me the awesome power to be what I am today, and never become complacent about it or rest on my laurels, but to continually improve in some manner and recognize that not every change is improvement. Many aren't. Some are just foolish sideways movement. Activity is not action, as many people have tragically discovered. Right after the ABCs, where we stop reading, a miracle things happens in this book. It says, being convinced. We were at step 3. Step 3 is italicized. A little further over in this same chapter, it says this is step 4. Step 4 is also italicized. There are 2 steps in chapter 5, how it works. 3 and 4, trust God, clean house. Took me 20 years to learn that. 20 solid years to get the simplicity of this thing down, to stop trying to complicate it. Now, before I get away from step 2, I want to tell you where the failure is. We came to believe, and we isn't in there, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, and that's where we begin to fail this program. Oh, most of us want to be restored to sanity, whatever the hell that is. I've never seen much of it, but we want it, probably because we've never had it. So we make doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors wealthy, trying to be restored to sanity without coming to believe. But there's another type, equally as dangerous to themselves. They come into Alcoholics Anonymous, spend many years trying to become a power greater than themselves, fail miserably, and after several years in AA go absolutely stark raving insane and end up in various mental institutions, and I've seen it happen, and probably you have too. All because they would not work that step the way it is written. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves, that does not mean Beverly, nor does it mean Hugh to her, a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It's like step 4. You know, most people get confused about step 4. You know what it is? I thought it said take an inventory. That's what it is. I didn't do it willingly. There are 2 kinds of people in Alcoholics Anonymous. Those you cannot make take an inventory, and those you cannot keep from taking an inventory. I come from the first kind. I asked a guy once, when should you take the 5th step? He said, when the statute of limitations run out. Sounded like a good idea. You don't take a 4th, you don't take a 5th, right? So for a long time, I never took a 4th. And then this adversary of mine caught me one day, and he said, kid, you've been freeloading us long enough. It's time to take moral inventory. So I took an inventory. Wrote it out in longhand. Seen the syntax was right. Punctuated it properly. Edited it somewhat for readability. Put a little addendum with this resentment list they talk about in this thing, and that is not an inventory, incidentally. Put a loose leaf folder. Handed it to him. He took one look at it. He said, what's this, a movie script? I said, no, sir, that's my inventory. He said, this is not your inventory. I said, it is. He said, it is not. I said, it is too. He said, no, it ain't. He said, what you've done, my young friend, is itemized your behavioral patterns, and I have no doubt that you've edited it so damn well that neither you nor I will ever know how you was ever wrong about anything. With that, he reached in his coat pocket, took out a very small notebook, draw one sheet. He says, take your inventory on this. I said, I can't. He said, you can? I said, I cannot. It's too small. He said, no, it ain't. He said, tell me, my young friend, did you ever knowingly take anything that did not belong to you? I said, of course I have. You know that. He said, and write down thief. He said, have you ever told a little story you knew did not match the facts in the case? I said, of course I have. You know that too. He said, then write down liar. I don't know about you, but I did not like the way this inventory was starting to turn out. He said, you ever played around with the girls when you was married to somebody else? I said, yeah. You know that too. He said, then write down cheat. He started to walk away, and he said, oh, incidentally, at the top of that page would you write down atheist? I said, I told you I was a Baptist. He said, what's the difference? Now, you know, for a long time, that seemed to me like a damnable insult. But something began to occur to me out of that one statement that I have been extremely grateful for a great many years. Do you realize that quite often a deep-seated religious conviction is a tremendous obstacle to a spiritual concept? I don't know why this is true, but I have seen it so often that I was amazed that I didn't see it all the time. How many times have you heard someone say, if you're not a good Baptist, what good are you? If you're not a good Catholic, you're good for nothing. And the greatest of all spiritual concepts cannot exist in that environment, and it is only 2 words long, and it cannot exist. Our Father cannot exist in that environment. But when that spiritual concept of our Father does exist, there's no longer blacks or whites, men and women, Yankees and Chicanos, just people. Just people, troubles, yes. And we can help them. And some are dangerous, I'll admit to this. So Alcoholics Anonymous says the primary purpose of any group, any two or more, is to carry their message to the alcoholic who still suffers. The fifth tradition, not just the 12th step, incidentally. I'm doing 12-step work here today with you as you did it with me for the other 2 days. An alcoholic carrying a spiritual message to another drunk. That's all this 12-step is. So go as a group, two or more, and if that's not enough, go as a mob, but for Christ's sakes, go. If it takes 20 of you to hold one of them down, then damn it, do it. Give them what you have been so freely given, or you won't keep what you have. The consensus of Alcoholics Anonymous. That by taking inventory in this manner, I also discovered something else. Being a thief didn't bother me, and that bothered me. I went up to this guy one day and I said, you know, Blake, being a thief doesn't bother me. He said, why should it? He said, we in Alcoholics Anonymous are not moralists. It is not up to any of us to force anyone else to live by the ever-changing morals of an ever-changing society. He said, for God's sakes, all we're trying to do is find out what the obstacles are to a spiritual concept. And he kept stressing the word moral, over and over. And finally, one day he told me, he said, all you ever did was inventory your experiences. You never took a look at your own morals. And a lot of people think these are immoral inventories. If you're a thief, you will live by certain morals. If you're a liar, you live by certain morals. If you're a cheat, you live by certain morals. These are your moral characteristics. My God, they're not immoral. They're just facts of your existence. And the great curse of a cheat is not that no one trusts him, but that he can trust no one. And that is the loneliness that most of us have felt. You don't trust me, and I don't trust you, and there's only me. And I'm lonely. By my own choice, by my own actions, not by yours. I just can't trust you because I can't trust me. But he said something else to me. He said, you said being a liar did bother you. I said, it does. He said, are you going to steal without lying? He hadn't. But I thought about it. Then I found a way. Almost everything I have told you here this morning, I have stolen from something or someone and weaved it together in the form of a story that I hope will help someone else better understand what I have found. And it's no longer a defective character, it's now an asset. I had tried for years to get rid of character traits. They are God-given. We cannot get rid of character traits. We have to learn how to use them properly. The character trait of a pathological liar and a novelist is identically the same. The only difference is that the novelist uses theirs for the benefit of others. I didn't say economically now, but not selfishly. They make a lot of money. And some of the greatest literature you've ever read was written by the Bronte sisters, who wrote Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. But do you know they wrote under the name of Belle? And what about Mark Twain? Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and a Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Yet his real name was Samuel Clement. You see, with these people, these were pen names, nom de plume. With me, they were aliases. But wasn't it remarkably similar? And I began to understand that Alcoholics Anonymous was not telling me to get rid of the character trait, but the defect of that character, whatever it was, the defect of that trait, only that, and then use the trait wisely for the benefit of others. And you will benefit, as I have benefited. Nothing complicated about this thing. It's very simple. It's very simple. There's one other word in that inventory that you're going to read. It's called a resentment. You know what a resentment really is? A resentment is the courage of a coward. And you get a resentment because someone done, or you think someone done, something that's detrimental to you, and you do absolutely nothing but think about it. The more you think, the worse it gets. And this long before you're filled with a burning rage ready to kill, and that SOB's out there enjoying life. Resentments, real or imagined, have the power to actually kill. I used to watch the Cowboys play the Rams. You clipped horrible. Every rerun showed it. The more I watched the rerun, the more I hated you. Got to hating the Rams, too, right along with it. For 20-some years, I have gotten my annual resentment by watching them play the Cowboys. One of these days, they're going to win, mark my words. I might not live to see it, but it'll happen. When I was going to school, I read something I hope I never forget. It was from Shakespeare's Caesar. And Caesar was describing something he was going to do. And someone said, "Beware, Caesar, beware." And he said, "A coward dies many times before his death. The valiant never taste of death but once." How many times do you want to die? Is once enough, or do you want to do it over and over and over? And it's the serenity prayer you heard referred to, too, didn't you? You know what the first part of it says? It says, "God, grant me the serenity." The serenity, it's not page 449, incidentally, it's the serenity to accept the things I simply cannot change. If it's working, don't fix it. If it ain't working, learn to appreciate it, but don't touch it. You know what the next line says? The courage to change the things we can. And I agree, the last line I was saying, a sponsor that knows the difference, but I guess it's okay the way it's written.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Now I jumped over step 3 so I could come back to it. We made a decision. We isn't in it, but you hear it all the time, don't you? Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. And do you know how many times I've had some young buck come up to me and say, "Well, I've turned my will and my life over to the care of God, and he's going to go to work for me." I got news for you. There is a record in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, where God got a job, worked 6 days, created the heavens and the earth and all therein, took a day off, and there is no record he ever went to work again, ever, for anyone. When you turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand God, you will do his work. He will not do yours. And if you gentlemen are not convinced of that, ask yourself one simple question. When you turned your will and your life over to her, whoever she was, who went to work? And if you're still not convinced, wait till Monday rolls around, go in and tell the boss, "From now on you're working for me," and watch what happens to you. But I'll tell you what remarkable thing does happen, and it is remarkable. And you'll overlook it sometimes for years, and sometimes you still won't appreciate it. When you do God's work as he would have you do his work, you begin to see that the worst you can do now is break even, instead of the best you could have hoped for previously. And if you own a car, you'll have flats because it rains on the just and the unjust, except that this time you'll have it in your own driveway, and the spare will have air in it instead of out in the middle of nowhere and no spare. And if you own a car, the brakes will go out, and it will cost you $92.87 to get them fixed, and you'll have $95 to your name, and you will not be grateful even though you just broke even. Would you rather have walked, or was it better to fix the brakes and ride? Sometimes it takes us years to realize that God is doing for us what we could never have done for ourselves. And now we're breaking even, which is the very worst that we can do now. And things seem to work out the way they ought to be. And things are the way they ought to be. Most of them do not meet with my approval, but that has never been asked for. God has never consulted me in any of these things. Heaven is not a democracy, and God is not up for re-election. And for those of you who still may be confused somewhat, I'd like to point out something else to you. If you're confused somewhat about your religion, Christ was not a Christian, and God was not Jewish. Do you realize how long it took me to understand that after spending almost 4 years in seminary? I was sober almost 20 before I fully understood that simple statement. The way we worship, the way we pray is our own business, and there is absolutely nothing in the basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous that will interfere with that in any way. And if you're a Catholic, you'll now become a better Catholic because our Father will have meaning. And if you're a Baptist, you will become a better Baptist because our Father will have meaning. And whatever else you are, be it atheist, agnostic, or whatever else you are, our Father will have meaning. And you will do for your fellow man what God wants us to do for our fellow man, and our lives will alter drastically. So simple, So easy, really. If you want to be an old-timer in AA, it's very simple. Don't drink and don't die. You'll become an old-timer. If you think that's going to grant you wisdom, you're foolish. It will not. Wisdom comes to you from your own experiences after you have corrected those mistakes, not while you're making those mistakes. I have survived my own foolishness, but nothing else. To enjoy life, I had to just stop being foolish as best I can, but I still enjoy it from time to time. I'm no longer a sadist, but damn, I'm a hell of a tease sometimes. But that's what they promised me in step 2, wasn't it? A sense of humor. Sanity, a sense of humor. The ability to laugh with the world. But my God, wasn't it Puck who said laugh and the world laughs with you? Cry and you cry alone. I'll take what Roth said. I'll cry tomorrow. Today I just want to enjoy being alive. You know how many people have said, I got a bad day? You never had a bad day. You got a bad attitude about a good day. God does not make bad days. If you don't believe me, read the Old Testament. It tells you in there, this is the day which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be happy therein. My God, do we not appreciate God because we're not getting what we want based on our damnable selfishness? I got what I wanted, but I've not always wanted all I got. But it came with a package, didn't it? And if I don't accept Beverly as Beverly, I'll be miserable. I like to tease you. Let her be miserable. Unfortunately, some of you taught her how to tease me, and I'm miserable too, so I don't tease her too much anymore. And I try to find a way to do it that's rather sneaky and enjoyable. Because that's what life's all about, isn't it? You can help her more than I could ever help her. I'm too close. I depend on you for my wife's sobriety and her sanity. She cannot depend on me. Because if I told her what she should do, I would not be telling her what's good for her. I would be telling her what's good for me. And it would not work. So I'm a codependent, I guess. I need you. I hope you need me. There's so much more I could talk about. But it's time to close. And in closing, I'd like to talk a little bit about step 12, just for a moment or two. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, is step 12. Which really is not a step, but a culmination. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, this book says a spiritual experience, all the same, doesn't really make that much difference. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. I am saddened when so many of my foolish friends do not practice these principles in their affairs and are thrown out of restaurants because they're obnoxious to waitresses. Do you understand that we are the publicity agents for Alcoholics Anonymous? And our actions will not fall on our shoulders, but on the shoulders of AA itself. I don't want to hear that anymore. Because of your foolishness, you try to treat someone miserable. What is kindness, courtesy, and consideration besides principles that you can live by? Do you realize that courtesy alone can save your life when you're fighting for 18 feet of real estate on a freeway that you don't only own for a fraction of a second? And because you will not relent, you die because you're not courteous enough to let some other fool go first and say, God bless you. Courtesy, kindness, consideration are principles we live by. In step 10, for Christ's sake, be considerate enough of the feelings of others to say to yourself that I am wiser today than I was yesterday, and yesterday I was wrong, and what can I do to set it right? Because that's all in the world you're saying in step 10. And what's wrong with saying I'm wiser now than I once was? Is that so reprehensible, or is it just the foolishness of our own selfishness that makes it seem so? Kindness. Step 11. When you ask a question, for heaven's sakes, be kind enough to wait for the answer. Kindness. You applied for a job in step 3. You'll get it in step 11. and the compensation for it. And it's all spelled out for you. But in step 12, it's something different. And a lot of people don't understand it. I want to explain it to you and close with it. Many centuries ago, when God had a message he wanted to carry it on the face of this earth, he looked around to see who could do it for him better than anyone else. And he found a group of people over in the Middle East who were very stiff-necked and self-willed. They were the tribe of Israel. And he gave them the commandment of carrying the message of one God throughout the world. One God. And in spite of all the shame, humiliation, and degradation that have been heaped upon their shoulders over these many centuries, they have done that so well that there are only two fundamental religions in the world today who do not fully accept the one God theory, and they're coming around. I know some of you are going to say, well, remember, it's God as we understand him. Don't say that to me. All you're going to tell me is you have not read chapter 11 where it says united under one God. One God. Many ways to pray, many ways to worship, many ways to get out of either. But one God nonetheless. And you heard me tell you about a moral inventory, didn't you? The Ten Commandments, I believe, are moral laws. And if we obey these moral laws, we can live on this planet for all times. And life will never end. But if we do not obey them, we will blow ourselves off this rock, and we could do that late this afternoon. I know that, and so do some of you. It could be done, and life would cease to exist because we didn't obey the Ten Commandments. I told you how I disobeyed 3 of them, the liar, a cheat, and a thief. I could tell you about the other 7, but it would make no difference. If you don't understand those, you wouldn't understand the others either. Thou shalt not kill does not mean murder. How many times have we killed someone's hopes and dreams and ambitions and destroyed them because we wanted that drink more than we wanted anything for anyone? And our wives and our children and all these people suffered because of that damnable thing that we didn't understand, and we killed them. We killed their hopes, their dreams, and their ambitions, and said, I've never killed no one. Well, I have, in many ways, and so have you, whether you like it or not. Now, I believe that Christ was born to carry a spiritual message, but you know, for a long time I could not find it. I looked through the Bible time after time and time after time, and I couldn't find it. So I live by what's known as the Golden Rule, which is common to every religious tenet I've ever read. To do unto others as you would have them do unto you, for as you do unto them, so it will be done unto you. And it worked extremely well for a long time. And then I made a mistake. I got into an argument with a woman. Now, I know better than to argue with women. I know when you win, you lose. I know it. I still do it, but I know better. But I found that spiritual message. I found the meaning. When Christ was asked, what is the greatest of all the commandments? He said, there are 2. Love your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And he had given us a spiritual commandment of loving one another. And for the first 300 years after his crucifixion, this worked extremely well by what is today known as the first century Christians, which was the founding concept of the Oxford groups, which was the founding concept of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then Constantine became emperor of Rome, the first Christian emperor, and got himself a little blue flag with a white cross on it, and got on a horse and went off on a holy war and sanctioned the churches. And cash flow became important, and the message became dormant. For 1,500 years it just lay there. Oh, some tried to carry it, Luther and others, some of the popes, but they were not successful. And once again, God looked around this earth to see who could carry this message of love for him better than anyone else. And one more time, he found a group of people who were the most bull-headed, stiff-necked, self-centered, egocentric bunch he could find anywhere. They were alcoholics. And in a blinding flash of light, he made a deal with one of them. He said, Bill, I'll make a deal with you. If you'll carry the message of love throughout the world, you will never drink again. And for 54 years, Alcoholics Anonymous has carried this message of love one drunk to another so well that we have risen from 2 to over 2 million sober alcoholics in this world today, all based on that one concept of love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you do not love yourself, you will not love your neighbor. And that's how you judge how you are, not how they are. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And how many times have you heard someone say what I want to say to you? You loved me when I could not love myself. You have taught me how to love you. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.